hello again, and welcome to the OnStage Colorado Podcast. I'm Alex Miller, and as always, I'm joined by Toni Tresca. Hey, Toni.
Hey there, Alex. I'm feeling a little tired after my theater weekend.
Man, oh man, you hit a lot of stuff. I mean, I had a decent amount of stuff too, but you were all over the place. We'll talk about that in a sec. So we're recording this on Monday, June 9th. You're listening to it on June 10th and beyond. So on this week's episode, we're going to recap our experience attending the 6th Annual Denver Fringe Festival, which I know we've talked a fair amount about in recent episodes. So, but we'll just talk a little bit about what it was like. We're going to touch on the Toni Awards, which, of course, were Sunday night. And then talking through some news around the state and sharing our usual top 10 Colorado headliners.
Yeah, and we've also got a really fun interview with one of the leaders over at Telluride Theater. So can you share a little bit about who you chatted with, Alex, and what folks can expect to learn from that conversation?
Yeah. Well, of course, we love to talk to theater artists from around the state. We tend to be a little metro area heavy because that's where, 90% of the action is. But I've always wanted to talk to somebody at Telluride Theater because every time I look at their site, they always have such interesting things going on. So I spoke with Sasha Cuciniello, who's the artistic director for Telluride. She has a really interesting background in avant-garde theater in New York and burlesque, and she's been there for a while and talks about how the theater began. And now that they have 3 full-time employees now, including a friend of the pod, Kevin Douglas, also part of 2 Cent Lion. Saw him over the weekend at Fringe, and also a new operations manager with Ryan Heidenreich. So I'm sorry, Kevin is the operations manager. Ryan is the new executive director. So they're cruising. They got lots going on, and it's interesting also to think about. You might think that a theater in a very wealthy town like that is good to go, and she's like, that's not necessarily the case. They struggle like any small theater. So stick around for that interview.
Yeah, I also imagine when you're in Telluride and the big arts organization in town is the film festival, maybe as the other arts organizations might be struggling to compete in that regard. That's interesting. I hadn't actually thought about that.
Yeah, it vacuums up all the money, kind of like Sundance is probably going to do in Boulder, which we've talked about. So I guess, we'll see.
Absolutely. Now, before we dig into the Fringe, let's start by talking a little bit about what non-Fringe shows we've both seen since we last talked. Alex, you want to kick us off? What have you seen recently?
Yeah, so I got out to the Denver Center to see the touring Broadway production of And Juliet, which I kicked off my review by saying how is it possible to enjoy a musical when you kind of hate every song? Because the soundtrack from And Juliet is driven by this guy named Max something. I can't find my program. He's a Swedish, I think it's Norwegian or something like that, but he's written tons and tons of pop hits that all these different, like Katy Perry and all those types have songs. So that's the, the kind of the soundtrack. But the show itself is actually quite funny. The book was really well done. And it's a great comedy, and the premise being that Juliet wakes up at the beginning of the show, and she's not dead; she's just sleeping, and she's alive, and Romeo's dead, and what's she gonna do with her life? She's only 13, going on 14, or they kind of joke that let's just say she's in her mid-20s. So anyway,
fair enough.
Fantastic performances. Oh my God, the woman who played and Juliet was just fantastic. I'm sorry, here it is. So yeah, her name was Rachel Simone Webb. So she was great, and the couple. So the big comic tension comes between William Shakespeare himself and his wife Anne Hathaway, and they that was a lot of fun too. Corey Mock and Teal Wicks. So yeah, that one is playing through. I think it's got a couple more dates to go, so you can still catch And Juliet at the Denver Center. I'd recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
So wait, before we go on, I'm now confused. So you just said that the story is following Juliet after she wakes up, but William Shakespeare, who created the character of Juliet, and his wife Anne Hathaway are also characters in this show?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, the gimmick is that they're starting the rehearsal for his new play Romeo and Juliet, and she's visiting from Stratford-on-Avon because she wants to get away from the kids. And basically, when she hears the ending, she's like, "Oh my God, that sucks! That's a terrible ending. Don't kill off Juliet. She's a great character." And so there's all this sparring as she tries to help rewrite the script as the show goes on. So it's really clever play. And if you can endure, maybe unless you like that music, I must say my wife Jen absolutely loved the show. She really thought it was great, and she remembered all those songs from when our oldest daughter was growing up in the 90s, and some of them are a little newer than that. But anyway, so that's And Juliet. And then the other thing I got out to on Friday was the 24-hour play. So this is the second annual one at the Curious Theater. It's a fundraiser, and so this gimmick is you get 6 playwrights and you have them hold up for 24 hours to write a play. And so what the result is this little group of plays, which, great. All these names that I know, it was such a fun night out there. It was just like a who's who of Denver theater. The playwrights included Edith Weiss, Josh Hartwell, Stephen J. Burge, Luke Sorge, Kenya Mahogany Fashaw, and David Nels. Does he pronounce it Nels or Niels? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
It looks like Nels. It's Nehls.
Nels, I think.
And so yeah, they were, as you can imagine, plays often take years of gestation before they're born. So these were definitely on the raw side. But there was some pretty nice stuff. And of course, all these, especially, dialogue was great, even the plots were a little half baked. But I think the funniest one was probably Luke Sorge's play Mom's New Beau. And it has this, so Anne Oberbrockling, who's an older actress, and her son and his, Brian Landis-Fokins plays the son, and Mackenzie Byers, his partner. And so she's like, "Oh, you got to meet my new boyfriend." And they're like, "Oh my God, it's some gold digger trying to get mom's money." And it turns out that he's like 30. He's almost not quite 30. She's probably, 70 or 80. And so, and they're just kind of all over each other and talking about the sex they're having. And Brian Landis-Fokins, BLF, was just great. Just like reacting to this, like, "Oh my God, Mom, yeah, it's disgusting," and blah, blah, blah. And then come to find out that they set him up, that, this guy, Gus Jacob Sorling was not really her beau. They just wanted to trigger him. And she was trying to make a point that she's like, "Look, I may be old, but I'm not like, incapable of, whatever. I'll let you know what I am." So that was pretty funny. David Niels was a little musical. That was it was kind of like a Goodnight Moon. It was almost like a kids show. So Michaela Murray played this little girl going and trying to get mom and dad are trying to get her to go to bed. And so it was a really kind of sweet, catchy songs. And by the way, David kind of was there for all of the plays. He kind of provided sort of some, background tinkling of the ivories in the back there. So yeah, a lot of fun. I'm not sure if any of these are going to, be the kind of thing that you turn into something bigger, but they were a lot of fun to watch.
And I heard a little whisper that the mayor, Mike Johnson, was going to be there in some capacity. Is that true?
Yeah. So in the first show by Edith Weiss was the best Edith Weiss, it was called A Bitch Fest of Biblical Proportions. And it has all these kind of historical or biblical characters like Lot's wife, who Andrea Rutherford was making a big deal out of the fact that in the Bible, Lot's wife doesn't even have a name. She's just Lot's wife. Had the Virgin Mary, St. Peter, Eurydice, and Satan, and Mayor Mike Johnson played St. Peter. So it was kind of more of a cameo. He came out with a clipboard and he was kind of trying to get things going. And then, but it was everybody gave him a warm welcome and applause when he went out. So, but yeah, really receptive, fun crowd. Everybody was having a great time. Unlike most Curious Theater, opening nights, no party. Artistic director Jada Suzanne Dixon, who directed Mom's New Beau, was like, "We are exhausted. We're all going to bed. So no party." So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that does make sense. I guess after all the creative team staying up for 24 hours straight, probably the last thing they want to do is go to an after party and start drinking and partying some more.
Yeah. And I should just add that, even if the plays were understandably not like the, polished pearls, the cast, oh my God, just dream casts. I mean, so you had Jim Hunt came on in this one called Mooch. That was kind of reminded me of School of Rock, where Rachel Turner and Josh Robinson play this couple where his best friend is on the couch and he's out of work. And in Stephen J. Burgess show, Cheryl McCallum, Abner Janice, Candace Areno. You had, BLF, like I mentioned, Christina Fontaine, Michaela Murray, Billy McBride, Piper Lindsay Arpon. I mean, just great casts all around.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun time. I was not able to make that out because I was fringing up a storm that day, but I'm gonna maybe I'll try to make that make it to that next year, because it does sound like a really fun event. I did 24-hour play festival when I was in an undergrad in college, so I did like a college version of it, which I imagine is probably similar in form, but yeah, it would be cool to see what the professional version looks like over at Curious.
Yeah, I should mention that it is a national thing that started in New York several decades ago, and they actually had one of the guys from the national organization of the 24-hour plays there, who got up and spoke a little words and talked about how wonderful Curious's shows were. So anyway, well, let's go on and talk about what you saw other than Fringe stuff.
Well, first, we'll start with the one that we actually saw together, Forbidden Broadway, Merrily We Stole a Song. This was at the DCPA in their cabaret theater. Won't spend too long talking about this, since you and I talked about this as the subject of our bonus podcast last week, but we had a pretty good time with it. It was, we thought overall maybe they included a little bit too much musicals that were new in New York. So maybe because we heard from a lot of the crowd that the references went over people's head, as well as from your son, Andy, that it was kind of hard to follow some of the stuff like The Outsiders and Juliet, because those are newer shows and just now coming to Denver. But the 4-person cast, as well as Jack Lipson at the piano, they're a really tight, fun group. They've got great chemistry together. And so if you have not seen Forbidden Broadway in a while, rest assured this is an entirely new and updated version, so you're not going to be getting a ton of repeats.
Yep. And you got, I think it plays into, I don't know, for at least another month or something like that.
That's right. Yeah, it's through the end of June. So you've got a little bit more time if you're interested in checking that out. And a night at the Cabaret Theater is always fun. They've got table service. The bar out in the lobby is really fun. It's just a fun, intimate atmosphere.
Yep.
Then I also went over and checked out the interactive art installation Oracle over at Union Hall. I teased this a little bit on the pod last time we talked, but this show it's a really kind of, it's all female artists. It's in the Union Hall, kind of in the Union Hall area, which I had never been to. It's kind of in this venue inside the Coloradan, which is an apartment complex at Union Station. So needless to say, I got lost on my way in. I did not find it the first time. But once I got in, all of the art, you enter the exhibit with a blindfold on, and then somebody is guiding you around the place, and they ask you how you feel in front of each thing. You kind of talk through it. And then after you do that, you pick which one of the objects that you want to go back and reveal. And you're supposed to ask this installation a question, and then this piece that you see gives you the answer. And so it's like an ancient oracle. You approach the oracle with a question, it gives you the answer. And while it wasn't quite as immersive as I think, or interactive as I thought it was highly reflective. I found myself really lingering on the piece that I was in front of, which was this one called Space Cowboy, which was really cool. It's kind of futuristic piece about kind of embracing change and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to be thinking about this for a little bit and how it kind of applies for specifically with the question that I had went in with. So don't go in expecting something immersive, but if you are kind of open to that experience and that sounds fun, I think you'll get a lot out of it, because I thought it was really cool. And then afterwards you get to wander the art exhibit and look at all of the artwork in there, and it's all super varied, nothing the same. Everything from like rugs to portraits to these like kind of mannequin style people looking things that are in a corner. So it's everything and anything.
Oh, that sounds great. And is that going on for a while?
Yes, it is. This is going on until July, so you've got quite a bit of time. And if you want to read a little bit more about the experience, you can head over to Denver Westward and check out my review of it. I also went over to Comedy Works' downtown club to check out their New Faces competition. This is a part of their new talent program, and this is actually the 25th year of the New Faces contest. They've been doing this contest for a long time, and this is always a lot of fun. 168 local comics enter this contest, and it gets whittled down to one winner. We're still in like the opening rounds right now, so the content is quite varied. You have everything from like, I saw one comic who was wearing a leopard print jumpsuit was joking about how she can't have any weed. Another person who was clad in a blue suit was riffing about Stevie Wonder driving. There were bits about being mistaken for Fat Drake, discovering your wife is a lesbian, and learning your mom lied to you about being Native American. So the jokes were really all over the place.
Wow.
And it's honestly, it's a lot of fun. This is the club's kind of signature event. And it's running through September 17th. That's the grand finals, in which one comic will be selected to take home $1,500 as the grand prize, as well as all the bragging rights that come with that.
Wow, 168 local comics. I didn't know there were even that many comics or aspiring comics in Denver, but I guess, I think everybody thinks they can probably just do a little stand up.
Yeah, but it's not just open to everybody. You have to already be in the Comedy Works like new talent system, and you have to come and have this 5-minute set, which you perform as part of the contest, already worked out and workshopped. So there were 250 comics that applied for those 168 slots.
Okay.
So there's even more than that in the area working, which I think really just speaks to how big the area's comedy scene is, because that's a massive amount of new talent in the pipeline.
Yeah, for sure. It almost makes you think there should be more comedy clubs to accommodate all these comics other than Rise and Comedy Works. And
you know what, Alex? I actually said the same thing as I was walking down 16th Street this weekend. I was curious to check it out. I had heard all the hype about the reopening. Did not live up to the hype, by the way. Still lots of it under construction and mostly vacant office spaces. And I just couldn't help but thinking there's one strip that's one block that has the Appaloosa Grill on it, a bowling alley, the movie theater is over there, a bunch of restaurants. I was like, the whole thing should feel like this. There needs to be more comedy clubs, more like there should be a theater over here. There should be more things to do to kind of actualize this space, rather than right now it's just kind of like another industrial kind of corporate hellscape that you walk up and down, filled with banks and hotels and things like that, but nothing to do. It doesn't feel like a city or a place you want to spend any time in. So I'm with you. I think that area might be a good spot for another comedy club.
Yeah. In comedy clubs, it's like, it's a lot simpler than setting up a theater. You just need a couple of lights and a stool, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that, but, and you definitely need a bar. But, it seems like an area ripe for someone to step in to add some more. So what else did you say?
I also checked out Little Miss Sunshine, the musical, over at the Aurora Fox Art Center.
Okay.
This is a musical directed by Warren Sherrill. It's got a really strong local cast, but I think this is another example of not every movie needs to be adapted into a musical, because this is a heartwarming kind of depressing movie about a road trip full of family members who can't speak to each other. They can't communicate. But in a musical, all the characters communicate very well through song and express exactly how they're feeling, which undermines a lot of the central tensions and kind of conflicts and nuance of what makes the original story work. And so I found that I spent a lot of this show just like kind of with my head in my head in my hand, because I was just like, oh my gosh, these songs are so bad. The cast is really trying, but I just could not. I could not get into this piece. I didn't find it compelling as a musical, and I thought it was an even worse adaptation of a movie that I really, really enjoy.
Wow. Well, yeah, great cast. Wow. Jenna Mulrays, Noelia Antweiler, Matthew Murray, Eric Sandvold. Yeah. And it looks like they have some kids in it as well.
They do, because the whole thing revolves around this Little Miss Sunshine beauty pageant that the family is trying to take their daughter Olive to. And so there are a lot of kids. And another big kind of just a technical issue with this production is about 75 to 80% of the show takes place inside the family's yellow Volkswagen van, which the team very realistically creates on stage. They have like the hollowed out shell of this vehicle complete with all the walls. However, because it's on a flat stage, you can only see the two people who are in the front seat. And so any of the dialogue scenes with all the family members in the car, you just cannot see the people who are in the back seats of the car. I'm not sure why they didn't take the roof off of the car or kind of like make the seats at an incline so that you could see the people. But from where I was seated in the mezzanine, about a good majority of the show, I could not see most of the cast who was speaking. So
that's an issue.
That was another kind of frustrating element of the show that kind of interfered with my enjoyment of the piece.
All right. Well, and then you got over and saw one of my faves, The Tempest, at Colorado Shakespeare Festival. And this one is interesting because it's got a female Prospero called Prospera.
That's right. Ellen McLaughlin, who folks might remember starred as King Lear at the Colorado Shakespeare Festival back in 2023, has returned. She's playing Prospero, and this is a really visually stunning production directed by Kevin Rich over there. The show is kind of framed as this island fairy tale. And so the people who come to the island who are shipwrecked there are wearing kind of more modern suits and clothing, but the island still feels very magical in contrast. And Kevin kind of leans into this and this idea of one of the ways that magic is created is through music, and has the central character of Ariel create this constant musical soundscape on the mandolin that is just kind of going throughout the show. He's riffing on other Shakespeare songs and inserting them into the play. And that just really ties this production together in this kind of musical, magical bow that makes it all work. There's also these really beautiful sequences of shadow puppetry to kind of explain the wedding, as well as the kind of spirits and how Prospero got to the island. And then the performances are just amazing, top to bottom. Ellen is really great as this kind of, she starts as this reserved, in control Prospero who gets more and more emotional as she sees her daughter fall in love and realizes her own mortality and what she's done by enslaving the creatures on the island. You've got some really funny comic performances from Matt Zambroni and Sean Scruggens, who are playing Trinculo and Stefano. Trinculo is the kind of the jester who is on the boat with them, and Stefano is this drunken buffoon who Caliban, who is played by Karen Slack excellently, finds his way in servitude to. And they have this hilarious scene at the end of Act 1 in which Caliban and Trinculo are under this rug together, and then Stefano finds them and are talking. That I've seen the show many times. That sequence is very hard to stage effectively. One of the best renditions I've ever seen of it. I just if you like Shakespeare, like The Tempest, this is a really visually arresting production of it with this top-notch cast. I'm really impressed by this. This is a really strong start to the Colorado Shakespeare Festival's 68th season.
That's great. Yeah, I wanted to ask though, like, The Tempest I think it's labeled as a comedy, and it has some comedy in it. And I know that that Rich has kind of leaned into the comedy in some of the other shows we've seen. Is there a lot of element of like really pumping up the comedic elements?
That's a really great question, and that has been one of my critiques of Kevin's productions in the past, specifically Much Ado About Nothing, is that I just found it descended into cheap clowning with no kind of emotional stakes. That was not true of this production. All of the characters, even though it is in this kind of fairy tale land, that doesn't mean that the characters themselves are hamming it up or larger than life. In contrast, actually, they are very grounded. It's the world around them that feels magical and overwhelming to them, because it is to these characters. They are being taken control by everybody except for Prospero, who is being overwhelmed by emotions, not necessarily the magic of the island. But I thought that in contrast to some of the other productions, like you were saying, this production struck that right tone between the visual magic that was being created with the stagecraft, but and keeping the characters still feeling very true, and not cheapening them for laughs.
Okay, good. All right, well, let's move on to Fringe. Like we said, we have covered this pretty extensively, and Toni, you cranked out quite a number of reviews of these shows that are on our website if you want to hear about some of them. It started off on Wednesday with a kickoff party at the Cleo Parker Robinson, where as many of the performers as they could kind of came on and did these 30-second just little bits of their show, which was kind of fun to watch.
It was hosted by Juice the Clown, who was very funny and had various objects off stage that they were like, if you overstay your time, I'll come out and beat you. However, at a certain point, Juice found that there were a couple of performers who enjoyed being beaten on stage,
more and more so
publicly.
And then they were playing people off with
exactly.
What was the song they were playing? They were playing people off with. It was
something really silly and funny. The whole atmosphere was very loose and communal. It was inside the Cleo Parker Robinson Theater, and it was just packed. Like pretty much every single seat was taken with Fringe performers or people coming to watch this kind of celebration of community.
Yeah. So you saw 8. I only caught 3 because I was busy on Thursday and Friday with other things, and I was just too pooped on Sunday to go out again. But I'll just mention I saw a cabaret, which was really fun. It was at the place formerly known as the Mercury Lounge Jungle Room, now the Pearl. So this is kind of like, it was cool. It was a classical sort of cabaret with just a chanteuse, Asha Romeo, her stage name was Miss Honey or Ms. Honey, and a piano player, and then also Gerald Robinson, a musician, who was, I don't know, I think he's kind of early in his career. I think he could use a little smoothing, but he was pretty good. So that was a lot of fun, and I have to say they're serving some pretty good food in there that we were able to get some lunch and good beers and stuff. So the Mercury Lounge tradition continues there. So Plant the Musical. So this one was a 2-person musical. So I had looked this up after because Andy and I were both kind of baffled by what we saw. But apparently both actors play the same character at the exact same time, which I absolutely did not get. So, and neither of us got, because she's, the woman is saying he's calling her mom and she's calling him son, and so we thought, okay, it's a mother and son, and so whatever. It was pretty wacky. They just kind of there's not really any choreography. There's just him on the keys, and they both had great voices, and it was cute. It was interesting where they're trying to solve the world's problems somehow. So and then the other one I saw was In Loving Memory. So this is kind of a redux of the 2 Cent Lion show from a couple of years ago, where there's this dead squirrel, and so this is revisiting this funeral of this squirrel. Izzy Chern and Kevin Douglas were the 2 actors on stage. And I have to say, they were at the Red Line Contemporary Art Museum, which is a beautiful space. It sucked for performance. It was just, the echo was just, it was really hard to hear them, especially if they raised their voices. And I would say to Fringe, do not use this venue again, unless it's for something really quiet or mellow or something, because it just didn't work. And the show itself was, I don't know. I didn't quite get it all that much. I mean, I thought, Izzy was great as this kind of neurotic weirdo who's still mourning the squirrel that she ran over 2 years ago. And Kevin was great as kind of her brother who's just like, what the fuck? Why don't you, it's just squirrel. And at one point he dumps the bones out of the box and it's like, give it up, forget about it. So it had some laughs, but I don't know. I wasn't quite sure why they felt they needed to do this one again. But yeah, what about some of the ones you saw? Do you want to? The one that of all the reviews, the one Ben Franklin's Sex Party was the one that just made me laugh reading the review.
That was my favorite of the weekend. As you mentioned, I saw 8 shows at Fringe, and I published 7 reviews to the site on OnStage Colorado. The only one I didn't review was A Nuptial Nightmare, which was a reading that I saw over at the Savoy's Flex space, because it's our policy. We don't review readings. And so I just was in attendance for that one. But all of the other fully staged performances, you can check out my full thoughts over on the site. But Ben Franklin's Sex Party was a really wild one that happened at Rise Comedy. It follows Ben Franklin, who comes back through a portal, and he's like, why am I here? Why am I here? He then realizes that America is in a doomed state and recalls this prophecy that his mother told him. Ben Franklin would be here at the beginning, and he'll be here at the end. So we realize together that America we're at the end of time. So Ben Franklin decides we're going to found a new country together inside the walls of Rise Comedy, which we do. Our country was called Birdlandia, and we created a bunch of different rules that we wanted to have in our society. Then we had a massive group orgy with Ben Franklin, who the woman who was performing went backstage, and she whipped out this massive erect penis that she used to just like whip across the entire crowd, coming everywhere as she did. And then we realized, now we've all got syphilis, because Ben Franklin he's a historic freak. He's got that syphilis in him, and now he's giving it to all of us. So then we then have to work together to take Ben out and move on. It's a absolutely hysterical show. Such a funny lead performance. I laughed so hard at one point, as I say in my review, that I literally spit stuff out of my nose, because I was taking a drink. She then said something ridiculous, and then there went the liquid out of my body.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love shows like that where you just like die laughing. So wow. All right. Well, yeah, definitely check out some of Toni's reviews. I haven't gotten around to the 3 that I saw. I don't know that I'm going to, just like that, none of them were all that memorable. But yeah, it was a great time, and it was just a fun atmosphere getting around to some of those. You really don't know what you're going to see.
That's what I was just about to say. Is I got pretty lucky. I feel like overall of the 8 shows I saw, about 5 of them I would say were very strong and had something really interesting, and I really got something out of. And so I feel pretty lucky in that, but you really never know. Like I could have selected 8 totally different shows and been like, wow, what a Fringe. I didn't like anything. But that's just the way it goes. That's the name of the game. People are trying out new things. They're trying ideas, and we get to kind of be a part of that experimentation, which is fun in its own way.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to reiterate our suggestion that next year Denver Fringe create a T-shirt that says "WTF did I just see?" Because that's kind of the theme.
Or if not a T-shirt, at least a little button that you can wear on your shirt or whatever.
Yeah. Also, a quick note, if you're still hankering for fringy stuff or you missed this Denver run, the Aspen Fringe Festival is going on this Friday and Saturday, June 13th and 14th. But it's kind of a different deal. They're doing Beauty, a psychedelic ballet Friday at the Wheeler Opera House, and a world premiere comedy by David Lettingham called Lincoln Goes to Hollywood. So I'm not sure that sounds like Fringe stuff. To me, it sounds like 2 kind of fully produced works, but sounds cool anyway. So that's up in Aspen. So also, OnStage Colorado is brought to you in part by Miners Alley Performing Arts Center, whose production of Ring of Fire runs May 9th through June 29th. Ring of Fire is a high-energy jukebox musical that brings the legendary songs of Johnny Cash on stage, weaving his iconic hits into a story of love, resilience, and the American spirit. Tickets at minersalley.com. Also supporting OnStage Colorado is Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater in Grand Lake. Their 2025 summer season runs from June 6th all the way to September 5th and includes Disney's Frozen, Guys and Dolls, Footloose, and Nonsense. Find tickets at rockymountainrep.com. The OnStage Colorado podcast is sponsored by Town Hall Arts Center in Littleton, presenting the musical On Your Feet, May 23rd through June 22nd. It's the story of Gloria and Emilio Estefan, a young couple from Cuba who took the entire world by storm with their unique, entirely creative fusion of Latin rhythms and Billboard Top 100 pop songs. Tickets at townhallartscenter.org. What else, Tony? You were watching the Tonys last night at Radio City Music Hall. What can you tell us about them? I wasn't able to see the show, but I know you caught some of it or recap some of it because you were out doing real theater.
Yeah, that's right. So I was not in front of the telecast last night because I was at the Tempest, but I was checking my phone throughout, watching the winners all roll in, and then when I got home, I sat down in front of my YouTube and I watched the show in clips. So I watched everything pretty much except for all the really boring stuff where they talk and do bad jokes in between. So I watched all the musical performances. I watched Cynthia Erivo, who was hosting her opening number, her opening monologue. I watched the in memoriam section, and I watched quite a few of the key winners' speeches. So I can, in preparation for this conversation today.
All right. So, well, I wanted to ask, do the Tony Awards still matter? I mean, what's the point of this award show for people like us in Colorado who maybe won't even get to see a lot of these nominated shows?
I mean, that's a good point, because the shows that are in consideration in this contest are only New York City. They're only in New York City, and they're only in the 41 theaters in and around Times Square, and they each must have at least 500 seats. And of these 29 shows that were nominated for Tonys, they include everything from original musicals like Maybe Happy Ending, which don't really have a lot of name recognition and are a bit of a tougher sell, to stuff like corporate IP cash grab plays like the Netflix's Stranger Things, The First Shadow. Mm-hmm. And I would say overall the Tonys, they matter a little bit in terms of, if you win quite a few Tonys, you may be able to help produce your tour, and then that will get it to places here in Colorado.
That's a good point, yeah.
And or if you are one of the musicals that are nominated at the Tony Awards, you are given a little over 3 minutes to perform a musical number live on the air. And let's be honest, not that many people watch live TV anymore. The ratings for the Tonys aren't going to be huge. They will live on YouTube. And if you have a really memorable Tony Awards performance, that can significantly boost sales overnight. So that is the thing that still matters. That exposure, that live telecast, that performance, if it really hits, that's the reason for the Tony Awards. It is, and you're like, Tony, doesn't that just mean it's a cynical marketing play for all of these musicals to show up? And I mean, yeah, a little bit, but aren't most award shows?
Yeah. Well, who were some of the big winners? And if you can just mention, which ones, what are these newer ones would you love to see come through Colorado in one way or another?
Yeah, so the big winners of the night were Maybe Happy Ending, which is a robot musical that took home the award for Best Musical, as well as 5 other Tony Awards. And Purpose, which is a new play about a politically connected Black family that won Best Play, as well as another Tony. And I'd be curious in seeing both of those come through. Mm-hmm. Both of them sound pretty interesting to me. Although the musical number that the cast of Maybe Happy Ending performed on the telecast itself, which was Chasing Fireflies / Never Fly Away, wasn't the most. I didn't think it did a good job of showcasing what the show was about. I knew it was about robots, but from watching that, I was like, I don't know who these kids. I know it looks like these two people are in a relationship together, and it's very sweet. The set was very cool, but from what I've heard, there's a lot more going on there that I kind of wish had been gestured to a little bit more in that performance. But I'd be curious in seeing that, as well as Purpose, about that Black family who is kind of dealing with the fallouts of a political situation. I'd be curious in seeing both of those.
Okay, cool. And then who were some of the other winners?
Other big winners include the Best Musical Revival for Sunset Boulevard. This is kind of the gritty reimagining of the movie that was adapted into a musical that was not well received, but now that it's been reinterpreted and they've added a lot of video projections and live moments where they're filming stuff and showcasing it on the stage, apparently it works now. And so I don't know if I'd be interested in seeing that one, though. It kind of sounds hokey to me, and I hate the music from Sunset Boulevard, the musical. So I don't think even if they've dressed it up that I will care.
Okay.
Best play revival, I am curious in seeing, though. It's a show called Eureka Day, which was written in 2018, and it's about a city council reacting to a measles outbreak, and it's a satire about vaccine skepticism, which, with RFK in charge of in charge of the health administration, I think it only feels more timely.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess, everybody can look online to see who some of the other winners were. Anything? What about the show itself? I know you didn't watch the whole thing, but did it get a decent reception? Because award shows are often panned or praised one way or the other.
I thought Cynthia Erivo did a pretty good job. Her opening number, Sometimes All You Need Is a Song. It was a little slow to get going, kind of showing her vocal prowess at first, but then it kind of worked into this funny number that referenced all of the shows, very high energy, that I thought was a pretty good start to the show. And then she had a pretty funny monologue roasting the people in attendance. And then she made a pretty big claim about this being the most financially successful season in Broadway history, which, while technically true, is not really necessarily due to a lot of the shows that were nominated tonight.
Right.
It's due to the Hollywood actors who have come in to do stuff like Othello and Glengarry Ross and are charging hundreds of dollars for or even thousands for tickets. So I felt like maybe that just needed a little bit more context.
Yeah.
And then as for the performances, there were a couple good ones. I thought that the Pirates, the Penzance musical, which is the jazz reimagining of Gilbert and Sullivan's The Pirate of Penzance, was excellent. They did a melody of We Sailed the Ocean Blue and this washboards kind of rhythm number. Amazing. Cool. I had no interest in seeing that show, but now I'm kind of like, ooh, I do kind of want to see that. And then Buena Vista Social Club did Candela, which I didn't know anything about this musical before, and I didn't really follow what was going on, but it looked cool, and it made me kind of curious as to what else was happening. And so I thought that was a pretty effective performance, but I think arguably the best one wasn't by any of the shows that were actually nominated. It was the 10th annual reunion performance of Hamilton that performed. That was the best. It was a great number. You had Lin-Manuel Miranda and the whole team back on stage. And it really reminded you why Hamilton has made so much money and become such a smash hit and is like the pinnacle of Broadway right now. And it did really kind of make some of the other shows look a little bit less in comparison, which I don't know how the other producers of the shows felt about that. But as somebody who was just watching the musical numbers, I was like, this is great for Hamilton and this is a great number.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on. What's in the news this week?
Well, there is a trouble brewing up north for two local theater companies, Bah Blue and OnStage, according to reporting by our friend at the Denver Gazette, John Moore. Bah Blue, which has been around for 33 years, has launched an emergency fundraiser to raise roughly $40,000 to make up for the dip in funding that they had expected to receive from local sources. And similarly, OnStage, which has been in the area for 50 years, issued the statement saying that because of the shift in public arts funding is down roughly 36%, they've been left with a pretty big shortfall, and so are now aiming to raise $15,000.
Boy, I hate to see that happening with those two theaters. So John's point in the story, which I couldn't read just because I couldn't get through the garbage on the Denver Gazette page. It's just like all this stuff, and it's paywalled. But anyway, it's he pointed out that the SCFD, the Science and Cultural Fund, what the hell's the acronym? It's the
Scientific and Cultural Facilities District.
Right. It's a big differentiator between Denver and Fort Collins because, there's, I think, 7 counties that throw money into the SCFD for arts and culture organizations in the Denver metro area. And it's a huge benefactor for all these theaters.
That's right. Yeah. And John noted in the piece that voters actually up north in Larimer County had the opportunity back in 2016 to essentially create their own version of the SCFD, which would have added 1 penny to every $10 purchase to support arts and culture in the area. But Larimer County residents crushed Initiative 200 with 64% of the vote. And that was on the same day that Denver voters reauthorized the SCFD for 12 more years with 65% of the vote. So
Wow.
It's hard to hear that these organizations are struggling, particularly when you have that little bit of context that there could have been a built-in kind of funding mechanism that could support these organizations right now in these hard times.
That's awful. 1 penny on $10. All right. Well, yeah. Well, I know John can be a little bit of a doomsayer sometimes, but I think he deserves a lot of credit for doing these stories to shine a light on some of these things that are going on. Because if no one raises the alarm, you just don't know. You might not know there's a fire. So it's good to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. In other news, the Colorado Renaissance Fair is returning to Larkspur for the 48th season soon. They're opening this upcoming weekend, June 14th, and over 100,000 people are going to be making the trek to this event that features 180 different vendors and over 80 live performers who will be doing shows. I really enjoy the Colorado Renaissance Fair. I think that they do a really cool job. It's out in this beautiful, secluded area. It's very hilly, very majestic, very easy to get lost in the fantasy of it all. How about you, Alex? Have you ventured to the Ren Fair recently?
I've seen a couple. I went to one in New York City a long time ago, and I have gone to the one in Colorado. I think at this point, I'd rather have my fingernails pulled out with a pair of pliers than go to an event like that again. To me, it's like hot, dusty, crowded. Everything's wildly overpriced. And kind of been there, done that. If I wanted, I'll go home and watch Game of Thrones or something to see swords and stuff. But I don't know. If you're into it, you're into it.
You know what? Fair enough. I cannot dispute to you that it is always hot. There is one thing about the Ren Fair is since it's set in this village where all the vendors themselves have roofs, but there's no roof for you, so you are just out in the sun, and it can get dusty at times. So I'm not going to dispute that, but it's in the news. In addition to opening this upcoming weekend, according to reporting by Kristen Fierro over at Westward, this year there might not be any elephants at the Ren Fair.
What?
I know. Colorado Parks and Wildlife has refused the elephant keepers a permit to exhibit the animals at the event. This comes after the Animal Activist Legal Defense Project at the University of Denver Sturm College of Law had threatened litigation against the state if they had issued the permit. But the state, they dispute that. They say that was definitely not a part of the process to deny the permit to the elephants' names are, or the company who wants the permits is called Trumps and Humps, that's pretty funny. But I for one am not upset that there will be no elephants.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
Yep. One final bit of news. We've got Denver native Annalie Ashford coming home for the Denver Center's Saturday Night Alive Gala. It's very soon. She'll be here on June 14th. And Annalie, she won a Tony Award for her portrayal of Ezzie in the 2014 Broadway revival of You Can't Take It With You. She was just on Broadway opposite Josh Groban in Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. And yeah, she's a local. She graduated from Wheat Ridge High School, and she's performed at companies that we talk about all the time on this podcast, like Littleton Town Hall, as well as the DCPA, and the former Country Dinner Playhouse and Theater Group in Denver. And so this fundraiser that she's here has been happening for the last 43 years and has raised more than $22.5 million in support of the Denver Center's theater and education programs. That's a lot of money going to the education program. And this fundraiser it does cost a pretty penny to get in, $1,000, but hey, at least it's going to a good place.
Yeah. I've gotten. I bought a table this year.
Good for you. You participated in the auction.
I'm just kidding. I didn't buy a table.
Oh, no. Oh. I was like, damn, Alex. Someday
that'd be cool. We have an OnStage Colorado table at that one, but not yet. All right. And we also have some breaking news just in. This is hot off the presses. Toni, what do you got?
We just got the 19th Annual Henry Award nominees in our email. This is the Colorado's annual award show. It's basically the Toni Awards, but for our state. It's going to be taking place July 28th at the Lone Tree Arts Center in Lone Tree. The show is directed by Kenny Moten and Leanne Schlong, with music direction by Jordan Oatman. The nominees for Outstanding Production of a Play are Dial M for Murder by the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College, Downstate by Curious Theater Company, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by the DCPA Theater Company, National Bohemians by Miners Alley Performing Arts Center, and The Reservoir by the DCPA Theater Company.
All right. Yeah, I'll do Outstanding Production of a Musical. Includes A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder from Arvada Center, Waitress at Arvada Center, Little Shop of Horrors, DCPA Theater Company, Come From Away at Rocky Mountain Rep, and The Music Man at Rocky Mountain Rep. So, wow, two there for Rocky Mountain Rep. So, we'll talk about more of the other ones coming up. But, and there's another bit of news about how they're doing it this year, right, Toni?
That is right. Yeah. So as you just mentioned, we'll have a full breakdown of the nominations at a later date, and you and I don't know. I don't want to speak for you. I will be in attendance at the award show again this year.
I'll be there.
Okay, you'll be there too. So we'll both be there covering it live and giving our recap afterwards. But yeah, the big news inside these nominations is this is the first year that the Colorado Theater Guild is not doing gendered categories. There is no longer a separation between male and female in performer for a play or performer for a musical. You just have nominations for Outstanding Performer in a Play, Tier 1 and Tier 2. No separation for gender.
Yep, or in musicals. So yeah, that they're following our lead, which we do in our Oscar awards. We started out by thinking that it didn't make sense to have actor actress categories. So good on you, CTJ. I think that's a good move. So look forward to talking more about this as we get into the summer, and we'll certainly be there to report on the event when it happens.
Well, that is it for our news roundup, but don't go anywhere yet because we have got a great interview with Sasha Cuccinella from Telluride Theater to chat a little bit about what's happening in that spunky, funky little theater in one of the most famous small towns in America. And then after that, and a word from our sponsors, we will share our top 10 Colorado headliners.
OnStage Colorado is brought to you by the Aurora Fox, whose production of Little Miss Sunshine runs June 6th through 29th. It's a heartwarming and hilarious musical adaptation of the beloved Academy Award-winning film. Little Miss Sunshine celebrates the power of love, determination, and the joy of following your dreams, no matter the obstacles. Tickets at aurorafoxartscenter.org. Also supporting OnStage Colorado is the Colorado Shakespeare Festival, presenting The Tempest June 7th through August 10th, and Richard II July 5th through August 10th. Shows take place in the Row Green Theater on the campus of the University of Colorado Boulder. Tickets at cupresents.org. We're also supported by the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, whose new season starts in August and includes Cry It Out, Elizabeth I in Her Own Words, The Thin Place, Every Brilliant Thing, Brooklyn Laundry, and Mary Jane, as well as Mad Librarians for the kids. Get tickets at betc.org. Hey, we are here with Sasha Cuccinella from Telluride Theater. You are the artistic director. Thanks for coming on the OnStage Colorado podcast, Sasha.
Thanks so much, Alex.
All right. Well, I've been wanting to talk to someone down there, and the perfect person is the AD. But I've always, we enter a lot of theater events in our calendar, and around the state. And so every time I usually have the tease, and I'm always intrigued by the things that are going on at Telluride Theater. because it's got an interesting lineup. So it's got burlesque mixed in with regular theater. You've got a Shakespeare in the Park thing. You're doing the Two Gentlemen of Verona this summer in Town Park here in Telluride. All kinds of fun stuff going on. So I wanted to check in and see how things are going down there. We were just talking before we started that I ran into Kevin Douglas, who's your new, I think, operations manager.
Yep, operations manager.
Yeah, and then you just hired another person, executive director.
Yep, his name's Ryan Heidenreich.
All right, so big changes going on there with the staff. So what are you going to do with all this extra horsepower, manpower, or whatever you want to call it?
I know. Yeah. So I started a small theater company in Telluride about 18 years ago. I moved from New York City and I was doing immersive, weird, avant-garde theater work. And people really ate it up and they were like, what is this? And so I grew. I say my first show I started it with $68. And then I grew from there and, started an education program and started doing, more work throughout the year, not just one show a year. And about 6 or 7 years in, there was a repertory theater that was here, a local company, and they approached us about a merge in around 2011. And that's when we really brought on Shakespeare in the Park and a musical and some more existing text work. So it's always been a hybrid of original devised work, because that's what I love. I'm a playwright and a director, and my background's in physical comedy and physical theater, with existing text, Telluride-centric weird stuff.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What prompted you to move from New York?
I came here to visit a friend. I was finishing writing a play and he was like, come out for a month. And then I never left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was like, oh, there's a whole other world out there. And I had a great time in New York. I was there for about 7 years. I worked for a downtown theater company for that time. I also had a theater company with some friends. So I worked pretty heavily in New York City. And then when I came out here, it was just inspiring and I loved the community and I loved that I could have impact within a small town.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I lived in Summit County for many years in the Breckenridge area, and I knew a lot of people like that who came for a vacation and just never left. And so it's something, yeah.
It's a common story here for sure.
Yeah, especially a place like Telluride. I mean, it can really grab you, even though it's a challenge to live in these mountain towns far away from things. Yeah. And, I always just say you can't eat the scenery. It can be hard to survive, but the fact that you're making it doing art is really impressive. So you were doing was it Performance Space 122 that you're referring to in New York? And so that was pretty avant-garde stuff.
Yeah. When I was working there, they had 2 theaters, and PS 122 is like where John Leguizamo got his start. Blue Man Group. There was like 20 different shows a year between the 2 spaces. It was just like a brilliant way for me as a young artist to be around it. I did everything from run their box office to work under their development director. I was their office manager for a little while. So it was like a really good, quick and dirty education for me. And then Mark Russell, who ran it back then, who now does the Under the Radar Festival in New York City, he asked me if I wanted to do a performance series. It was in an old school, so I called it homeroom. So a lot of my young, hungry artists would come and do like little experimental stuff, just to see what they could put on stage. So I had a really good few years there. It was really amazing.
That's great. Yeah, another thing that's interesting about your resume is that you're a burlesque performer, and burlesque is also kind of in the mix at Telluride, which is pretty unusual. It's either you're a place that does that kind of thing or you're not.
In 2010, 2011, when I was still running Squid Show, I wanted to come up with a fun new fundraiser. And I've always been, I was in New York City when the neo-burlesque movement in the early 2000s, late 90s was coming back up. And I was just fascinated with it. I loved being around it. I loved the vibe of it. And I just thought, like, why don't we just start something here? And it was one of those things like fake it till you make it. 2026 will be our 15th year. We teach a beginning burlesque class, me and my teaching partner, and it's become a huge part of what we do. It's really formative. The young people that take it now are like, this is a rite of passage in town.
That's cool.
And I'm like by heart a comedian, and I just like love that burlesque is a space for people to be free and open and express themselves in a really unique way. I've been lucky enough to teach for the largest burlesque festival in the world, BurlyCon. And, because we live in a bubble in Telluride, it's really important for me. And then our professional troupe, the House of Shimmy Shake, like get out in the world and perform and meet other people. And burlesque is really an inclusive, incredible space. And we've created our own little version of that here.
That's fantastic. And the Telluride community's really responded to it.
They, beyond responded to it. We do 2 weekends of shows at the end of March. We have our beginning weekend, which we call Cheap Thrills. And then the House of Shimmy Shake does a show. And we devise that show like every year is a different theme. We've done Vegas. We've done Hollywood burlesque. We've done Calendar Girls. We've done all these different fun themes. And we do 3 nights at our historic opera house. So it's 5 nights total, and it sells out every year. Last year, we added a holiday show that we're going to do again this year, December 26th and 27th. It's just really fun, especially because we have the historic opera house. It harkens back to the mining days. And, Telluride's fun and funky and weird. It's becoming less so. And I think it's one of our mottos at Telluride Theater is keep Telluride weird. And that's our signature event where we do that.
So that's a beautiful facility. I've been in there, the Sheridan Opera House. How is it? Is it fairly modernized, and does it have decent, tech? Or no? She's shaking her head.
No,
not so much.
From when I first started working there about 15, 16 years ago, yeah, they've updated a bunch of stuff, but there's only so much that they can do. Like there's no backstage crossovers. They've added a little bit of a lip of like an extra like add-on stage that you can work on. They've upgraded their lighting a little bit. It definitely has its challenges, but it's also a magical, incredible space to work in. And I feel so grateful that we have such a great relationship with them. So it's, we pick and choose what we do there. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Do you've performed and directed in a lot of different facilities, probably some really new ones with fancy all
Yeah.
that. I mean, do you think working in an old shoe like the Sheridan is a different? It's kind of a different. Does it bring something to the performance?
Yeah, when I started the theater company here, and the theater company I ran in New York City, we did a lot of site-specific work. And I think like that's some of my favorite work to do. I've done plays in an old mine here. I've done plays in bars. I've done plays in people's living rooms. I've done plays that traveled around town in a progressive manner. So I really like alternative spaces. I think that it brings fresh energy, and especially for an audience, something unexpected. When you go to a high-tech theater, it's like you're expecting to see something different. And when there's low tech, I feel like the performers and the audience both need to work a little bit harder. And I feel like the connection between us becomes greater, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's fun to perform in different types of spaces. I'm still waiting for someone in a ski town to do a gondola-based immersive production.
Yeah. So we started a Fringe festival. It was our second year this year. And it's something that I've always wanted to do is like a short TV show called Gabbing on the Gondola. Because the gondola ride is like 12 minutes round trip. And I'm like, it's the perfect, short format. Maybe I'll start a podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Or you could do where there's people get on the gondola and there's other people and you don't know if they're part of it or not. And
I love it. Yeah, I actually started writing a play for the gondola a very long time ago, and it just never, it was one of those ones that just like I just never did.
Yeah. Speaking of plays, you've written over 20 of them as a playwright. So what have you mounted any of them down in Telluride? Or?
Yeah, that's mainly all of them have been performed here. I have come up with, and it's ever evolving, a devising process. So I'll come up with an idea. We get in the room with an ensemble of actors, we improv, and then I write from there. And more recently, as I'm getting older, I do a lot more writing at home prior to the devising experience, because when we devise, it's like a 6-week process from beginning to end. And in there, I'm writing a play. So, yeah, I mean, those plays I've all done in Telluride, and we try to do at least one original show each year.
That's great.
Yeah.
What was the last one that you produced of your own?
Of my own, it was called, we did a holiday show 2 years ago, and it was called the Dufresne Family Holiday Spectacular. It was about an old country music family celebrating the holidays and like sort of trying to see how they were going to keep on their legacy. And then before that, I wrote a play that was called Epic, that was based on the Odyssey. And it was all of our sets and everything were made out of cardboard. It was a fun show. Yeah.
Now, you did another show this past winter. I think it was, maybe you'd done it before, Ski Bum, the musical.
This was the first time that we did it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we have a local ski bum. Shout him out, Lionel Starr, and he's lived here since the 90s. And he actually came to me like 2.5 years ago, and he'd been doing like funny YouTube videos of like rapping for years. His rap name is Lift Ticket. Look him up on YouTube. It's hilarious. And so he's been like creating this thing, and he came to me and was like, I want to write a musical about ski bums. And at first I was like, because I get a lot of people being like, you should do this and you should do this and you should do this. And I thought, a friend of mine who was working here at the time, she was like, you know what? I think we should support him in this. He seems pretty motivated. So over 2 years, I sort of ushered him through and mentored him to create this play. And he did it. And it was a huge, wild success. I think we had 8 sold out shows at the Opera House. People were trying to get tickets. It very much spoke to who we are as a town, where we've come from, and hopefully where we're going. So it was a really cool process as a local theater company to, have a new hungry artist come who really didn't have any experience and help them, create this magical piece.
Right. Do you know if it's going to be continuing on anywhere? Like maybe
we've had a few people reach out. Nothing definite right now. If anybody wants to reach out, the script is amazing. It's actually set in what we call Ski Town, USA, so it's not Telluride specific. It was a wild success, and we are thinking about doing it like every couple years as sort of like a B-side of like, come and see this again, because people are like, I'll go and see it again.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be great to do. Looking at you, Backstage Theater and Breckenridge, perfect.
Totally.
Perfect show for them.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, what are you thinking for the future now that you've, that you're moving forward? Do you have any thoughts about doing some new kinds of programming or?
Yeah, it's amazing having this new team. It's been me with a little bit of help here and there, but the goal has always been to have 3 full-time people. And now that we have 3 full-time people that are motivated and excited, I'm so open to what they want to do. Ryan, who's our executive director, is an incredible musical theater artist. So I know that he's like itching to do a little bit more of that. And Kevin is a writer, and we're excited to have him, and his work. We're really looking at collaborations in town. We're doing a collaboration with our Chamber Music Festival this summer and doing a reading of Peter and the Wolf. So we do a lot of stuff like that. That's like, it comes to us to say, we had our local library is their 50th anniversary, and we wrote a progressive theater piece, and it was called Stories in the Stacks. So we're redoing that for them in August. We're always open to new ideas. We have our 5 main stage productions, but in between there, we do a lot of other smaller original work. The Fringe Festival was really like the big new thing, and we're trying to grow it. It's hard in a small town, and it's hard in an expensive town where, the Denver Fringe people can go and stay or stay with friends, and here
Right.
housing is a major issue for us. So we're trying to do that. Something I would love to do in the future is have a retreat space where other artists from, I have a bunch of friends in New York and LA and Chicago and Denver that can come here, work on a play, and then we either do a reading or a sharing of that play, not a full production, but just give space and time to artists and have them inform what we do as well. So and then the last thing that we're looking at is that we're really beefing up our education program. Our local drama program was getting cut from our public school, and I had a ton of parents come to be like, you have to save the drama program. So the school put it out that they were going to hire for after school to take care of the big productions and the drama club and stuff. So we recently got hired to do that, which I'm very excited about, to sort of mentor and usher that generation of artists, because I think arts in the school is so important. And I feel lucky that I was able to grow up with that. And as we know, it's the first thing that gets cut, but it's detrimental to the kids that really need it.
Yeah. I was looking at your bio. You have is an 8-year-old daughter?
I have an 8-year-old son.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
is he getting into the acting scene? No.
He is a wild creative. He's really interested in writing and directing. He wants nothing to do with be on stage. So
okay.
I think eventually he'll warm up to it, but it definitely is he comes to rehearsals with me. He's around it all the time. I joke he's like the Alex P. Keaton from Family Ties, the family of hippies. He was like the investment banker. So yeah. I think he's like, I don't know if I want to do that. Okay. Yeah, but he is an artist at heart. He's a great musician and a beautiful visual artist. So yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. So I also want to ask you about funding, which is a huge thing for any theater, but small theaters especially, just to stay alive. Do you have a pretty good base of sponsors or grants or what's driving the ship here?
We're working on it. It's one of those things that it's a constant struggle for us, and I think a hard thing for being in the middle of nowhere in a small town is people assume that we're these fat cats that get a ton of money, and we don't. We do have a lot of wealth capacity in this town, and we have access to people, but there's a lot of competition with other nonprofits as well. So, I feel grateful that we are where we are, but we do need to grow to be sustainable and to continue on everything. The hiring of Ryan has been amazing because he's going to be, we've never really had a specific fundraiser, and he's really working to beef up our sponsorships, our advertising, our donors, that type of support. One thing that's really magical about what we do and why people want to support it is it's one of the last bastions of community gathering in our town. A lot of people have had to move out of the town of Telluride. There's not really a space where people can get together that's outside of the bar or outside of a music concert. Right. So our events are sold out. People come, they participate. We consider ourselves an educational theater, so we're open auditions. We have people that have never been on stage that come to work with us. Ski Bum, we had 6 new people. Shakespeare in the Park this summer, we have 8, and we basically teach them what theater means, and it means so much to them because it gives them a sense of community and purpose and working together to do something. So our funders get it. We're working on making more people get it. if that makes sense. So we're a combination of private donors, foundation support. We get some support from the town of Telluride. And then, we have burlesque, which is a fundraiser. And then we do a fundraiser in the summer as well. So it's a mixture. But that's where we're at.
Okay. Sounds like you're making it work, and
making it work, and it's like, obviously I follow the news and I see theaters closing all the time. And, we're all walking on eggshells right now of what's going to happen with nonprofits and giving and all of that stuff. So, we don't know what the landscape's going to be like, but we're trying to continue on.
All right. Well, Telluride Theater upcoming is the Mule Skinner's Ball fundraiser, June 28th at the Sheridan Opera House. And then you're doing Two Gentlemen of Verona, which you were just talking about, at Shakespeare in the Park and Town Park Stage there in Telluride, July 19th through 27th. So I'm sure you're pretty busy with that, but I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here at the OnStage Colorado Podcast. Artistic Director at Telluride Theater, Sasha Cuciniello, and break legs all around with everything you're doing.
Thanks so much, Alex. Thanks for having a conversation. Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, we're back. Well, that was a lot of fun to hear from Sasha. I really enjoyed talking to her and hearing about, theater, the interesting little theater down in a very special place, Telluride. I don't know have you ever been to Telluride, Toni?
I have not. No, I've only ever heard stories about the magic and splendor of Telluride.
Yeah, it really is.
Sounds
cool.
like a very scenic place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And as two people who are primarily Denver-based reporters, it's always cool to hear about what's going on in the arts communities in mountain towns. They often have to make really creative decisions to get by there, and so it's just kind of curious about how they serve the communities that are out there.
Yeah, it's tricky, because I was involved with the theaters in Summit County pretty extensively in the 90s, the Lake Dome Theater Company and Backstage Theater. And it's really challenging to figure out what to put on to please the locals and the tourists. The locals don't necessarily want to see the stuff the tourists see. So, but, it's interesting because, hearing her talk about how popular the burlesque is, that's really interesting, in a kind of probably pretty liberal town. I can see that working, but may not work in, whatever, some other places. So. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into our Colorado headliners. So these are some of the upcoming shows we think you should know about in no particular order. Toni, you want to kick it off?
Sure. So I'm kicking this off with an immersive food experience by the Catamounts. It's Feed Wood over at Lone Hawk Farm in Longmont. It's running June 13th through the 15th. And Feed is part of the Catamounts original series, which pairs food, drink, and performance in a 4-course seated meal. And they've been doing this basically since the beginning of the company's history. And this installment of Feed is going to celebrate the role that wood plays in both the sound and resonance of guitars, as well as the aging and flavor of whiskey.
Wow. All right. Well, my first one is Something Rotten at Stage Door Theater in Conifer, June 6th through 29th. I think I mentioned this is one of those shows that somehow or another I haven't seen yet. So I'm really looking forward to going up and seeing this one. It's gonna take me a little bit to get up there, but so I'll have a review of that. But yeah, this is it's apparently a very funny show. So I'm looking forward to it.
My next headliner is a remount by Buntport Theater Company, which is Denver's 5-person ensemble that creates new works. And that is their production of The Book Handlers. They originally wrote this back in 2018 in response to the Trump administration. It's a comedy that delves into the anti-intellectual movement inspired by Brian O'Nolan's short story. And I was just over at the space chatting with the team, and I joked with them. I was like, I bet you hoped you would never have to remount this show. Yeah. And they were like, you are absolutely right. But unfortunately, it's even more relevant today in 2025 than it was when they first wrote it. So if you're interested in a satire skewering people who don't want to think, head on over to Buntport for The Book Handlers.
Yeah, that is sad that you've got to bring this back. Because, yeah, they are definitely even more anti-art, anti-science, anti-all that's good in the second run-through. All right. Well, my next one is kind of a trifecta. I'm just going to mention Driving Miss Daisy, Mamma Mia, and $1 Million Quartet are the 3 shows going on at Theater Aspen now through August 23rd. So I haven't been to it, but I've seen pictures there. They have this beautiful outdoor facility, or I think it's kind of indoor outdoor. I think there might be a tent kind of component to the Hearst Theater there. But yeah, if you're up in Aspen Way this summer, I would definitely check out that. I think they have a really good program up there.
My next pick is a series that's going on over at the Westcliff Center for the Arts. It's called Shakespeare in the Sangrees, and this is a series of programs that's designed to entertain that rural community that has less than 5,000 county residents. This year, they are programming Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare and Yo Ho Hum, which is a new comedy by Marcus Anthony that debuted at the Minneapolis Fringe Festival in 2014 and tells the story of Stede Bonnet, a respectable 18th century gentleman turned pirate captain, and his hapless first mate, whose dream of becoming a meteorologist is dashed as the result of a fateful encounter with Blackbeard. So both these shows are going to be done in rep at the Jones Theater and the Westcliff Center for the Arts, June 13th through the 29th.
Yeah, that is a town I have never been in, Westcliff, Colorado. But
neither have I. But it's nice to know that they've got some what sounds like interesting programming there. Midsummer Night's Dream is obviously kind of your more crowd pleaser, but it's cool that they've got that additional piece of programming that sounds a little bit more experimental from the Fringe circuit.
Yeah. My next pick is actually another group of shows I just wanted to mention. So this is in the melodrama vaudeville arena, which is kind of like a sort of a summary thing. A lot of times, people that are on vacation like this kind of thing when you come across them in small towns. So in Cripple Creek, the Butte Theater is doing the Colorado Colleen, June 13th through July 13th. Iron Springs Chateau in Manitou Springs has a show up now all the way through August 2nd called Disturbance at the Delta. I think there's a subtitle of or here Fishy Fishy or something. At Main Street Live in Trinidad, they're doing a pair of melodramas, Pony Espresso and The Old Cookie Shop from June 13th through 22nd. And then the Glenwood Vaudeville Review, just wanted to mention. So they're pretty much always running, but they've got a show that's running all the way through October 12th. So if you're in the Glenwood area, definitely recommend checking that out. It's they've got like a kind of a cash dinner theater that you can either watch the show, just watch the show, or you can get dinner. And I think it's kind of like barbecue. It's kind of like a chill dinner theater experience. That's really fun. And it's like all kinds of corny fun stuff to see in their vaudeville review there.
I'm going to keep us in that dinner theater space with my next headliner, Anastasia over at Candlelight Dinner Playhouse in Johnstown. This is a pretty popular musical at this point. It was done. It's toured through here. It was done over at the Arts Hub recently. But this is a show that is set in Russian Empire in the 1920s and follows a woman who sets out to discover the mystery of her past. It's based on that movie. It's got a great score, and I'm sure Candlelight is going to do a bang-up job with this because it's a big, luscious musical, and Candlelight that's their specialty.
Big, luscious musicals. Anastasia is a great show. I really enjoyed it when I saw it, I think at the Arvada Center a ways back. So my last one is Frozen at Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater in Grand Lake. So they have a rep season going through August 30th. That also includes Guys and Dolls and Footloose this summer. So again, if you're up in the mountains, Grand Lake it's sort of the mountains. It's sort of in the in the High Valley there, and I guess North Park. But definitely if you're wandering around out there and doing any hiking, or there's a big lake up there, obviously in Grand Lake that people do stuff on. So definitely check out what Rocky Mountain Rep is doing there.
My final pick is Steel Magnolias, Theater Silco in Silverthorne. This is a pretty familiar title to folks. It's set in a salon and follows a hodgepodge of women who form friendships as strong as steel when a tragedy strikes. And the reason I wanted to feature this, in addition to being a cool show going on in Mountain
Holy
Town,
cow.
It's the cast is out of this world. Yeah. I mean, these are just a couple of them. Emma Messenger, Leslie O'Carroll, Maggie Tisdale, and Teresa Swartz. It's just a really outstanding cast that the company has assembled to do this show. So, I mean, if the show is half as good as the cast, is going to be amazing.
Yeah, they do a great job up there. And, they don't do a lot of plays. They mostly do, crowd pleaser musicals up there. So this is a little bit of an outlier. But I actually think I'm going to try and make it up there for that one, just because I love Theater Silco. And it's such a great play. And it's like I've seen it a number of times before, but with that cast and any excuse to go up to Summit County and, fit in a hike or something beforehand, why not? And if you want to go, Toni, let me know.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. We'll have to have that conversation off pod.
Yeah.
Well, that is it for this week's Colorado Headliners and brings us to the end of the show. Alex, what can people check out on OnStageColorado.com now and coming soon?
Yeah, well, I've got my review of Juliet and all of your Fringe coverage that we talked about. Plus, I think you're going to be doing a review of The Tempest.
That's right.
And April down in Colorado Springs saw Four Old Broads on the High Seas at Funky Theater, so she'll have a review of that. That's some of the things that'll be coming up on the site.
Yeah, and if you want to stay up to date with what's going on in theater and comedy venues across the state, subscribe to the OnStage Colorado newsletter, which comes out pretty much every Thursday.
Yep. So next week for our bonus pod, we'll have the two winners of this year's Bobby G Awards on to talk about their upcoming trip to New York. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm talking to them later today. We'll also be talking about the trip that Toni and I are taking to Steamboat Springs so we can attend the 27th Colorado New Play Festival.
Yeah, which should not be mistaken for the DCPA's Colorado New Play Summit, which has only been around for a measly 20 years, not the 27 years that the Colorado New Play Festival has. That event that we're attending in Steamboat is widely regarded as the oldest and longest running new play festival in the state. And since neither of us had been before, we decided why not make the trek together to check out the festival's 4 featured plays.
Yeah, and I think the playwrights will be there. Maybe we'll be rubbing shoulders with Lauren Gunderson and some of the other ones up there. So, we're going to go up there. We're going to burn that place to the ground, man. Steamboat, we're there.
Hell yeah. Steamboat will never be the same after we take it.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to be staying with my old friend Poke Keithley, who I met when I got cast in The Nerd a billion years ago at the Breckenridge Backstage Theater, and who's remained a friend of mine for many years, a fantastic actor, but now he runs a t-shirt shop up there in Steamboat. So looking forward to seeing old Poke. So, all right, well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca, and we'll see you at the show.
Woo!